Hello to all of you dear friends. I hope you are all well. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to channel, Freedom in Humanity. This video is the second part of the Quran. Please join us. Please subscribe to my channel after watching the video. History of Quran. Writing and editing. The Prophet of Islam placed great emphasis on memorizing and reading the verses of the Quran correctly. Due to the small number of literate people and lack of writing facilities in the early years of the Bizat, fearing that a word would be forgotten or mistakenly recorded, he tried to memorize and recite the verses correctly. When a verse is revealed, he calls the scribes of revelation to write it. Verses of the Quran were written sporadically on pieces of animal skin, palm wood, cloth, and paper. The Prophet himself supervised the writing of the revelation. After reciting the verses to the scribes of revelation, he asked them to read what they had written in order to correct possible mistakes in writing. The compilation of the Quran in its current form did not take place during the time of the Prophet. In the time of the Prophet, the verses and letters of the surahs were determined by his opinion. However, the final compilation of the Quran in the form of a book and the arrangement of the surahs was done after the death of the Prophet and at the discretion of the companions. According to this book, the first person to compile the Quran was Imam Ali. He compiled the chapters of the Quran based on the date of their revelation. The Arabs of the Quran. In the Arabic language, the Arabs play an important role in expressing the meanings, and paying attention to the Arabs of the Quran is doubly necessary, because the error in recognizing the Arabs of the Quran changes the meaning and sometimes the meaning contradicts the purpose of God. The scribes of the revelation initially considered the words of the Quran without dots and Arabs, and this was not a problem for those who lived in the time of the Prophet, but for future generations, especially non-Arab Muslims, sometimes led to different readings and changes of meanings. It was necessary to end the differences and change the spirituality of the Quran. Historical accounts of the first Arabs to translate the Quran and record various Arab symbols. Translation of the Quran. The translation of the Quran has a very ancient history and dates back to the beginning of Islam, but the first complete translation of the Quran into Persian was done in the 4th lunar century. It has been said, the first translator of the Quran was Salman Farsi, who translated Bismillah al-Rahman al-Rahim in the name of God, most gracious. The translation of the Quran into European languages was initially done by Christian priests and monks. They translated phrases from Islam in order to shape it. The first complete Latin translation of the Quran was written in the 6th lunar century, 12th century AD. Quran structure. The Quran has 114 chapters and nearly 6,000 verses. There is disagreement about the exact number of verses. The Quran is divided into 30 parts and 120 parties. Surah. The different parts of the Quran that have a coherent content are called surahs. The surahs of the Quran, except for the Surah of Repentance, begin with Bismillah al-Rahman al-Rahim. According to the time of their revelation, the surahs are divided into two categories, Meccan and civil surahs. The surahs that were revealed to Mecca before the emigration of the Prophet of Islam are called Meccans, and the surahs that were revealed after the Prophet's migration to Medina are called Madani. Verse. The verse refers to the words, phrases, or sentences of the Quran from which the surah is composed. Each surah has a certain number of verses. The verses of the Quran are different in volume. Surah Al-Baqarah is the most verse in the Quran. The verses of the Quran are divided into two categories according to the degree of clarity of meaning. Strong verses are verses whose meaning is so clear that there is no doubt about it. Verses whose meanings are given different possibilities are called similar. This classification is provided by the Quran itself. There is another division for the verses. A verse from the Quran that invalidates the ruling in another verse is called an abrogated verse, and a verse whose ruling is invalidated is called abrogated. Component and party. Party is one of the two types of divisions of the Quran invented by Muslims. Muslims have speculated that this was done in order to plan for the daily recitation or memorization of the Quran. Such divisions had an individual aspect and were not the same, they said. At the time of the Prophet, the Quran was divided into 7 parties and each party consisted of several chapters. Also, in some periods, 2-part to 10-part divisions have been proposed for the Quran. Today, it is common to divide the Quran into 30 parts and each part into 4 parties. Content. The Quran deals with various issues such as matters of belief, morality, religious rules, stories of the past, the struggle against hypocrites and polytheists. Some of the important themes of the Quran are monotheism, resurrection, the events of the beginning of Islam such as the expeditions of the Prophet of Islam, the stories of the Quran, the religious and legal rules and punishments of Islam, moral virtues and vices and the prohibition of polytheism and hypocrisy. Distortion of Quran. Distortion in the sense that is often discussed, that is, adding a word or words to the Quran or removing a word or words from it. The challenge and miracle of the Quran. In some verses of the Quran, the opponents of the Prophet of Islam are asked to bring a book like the Quran or 10 chapters or at least 1 chapter like it if they do not know that the Prophet was sent by God. Muslims have called this issue a challenge. Challenge means to fight. This word was first used in theological writings, meaning the opposite of wanting the Quran. According to Muslims, no one can bring a book like the Quran, and this is a sign of the miracle of the Quran and the prophethood of Muhammad. The Quran itself has emphasized its divinity and considered it impossible to bring a likeness to it. The miracle of the Quran is one of the Quranic sciences that examines the reasons why the Quran is miraculous. Motivational and hopeful sentences. Please say these words to yourself. We are all human beings, the head of all beings and nature in this world, and this head position has been given to all of us by God. Please thank our God and take care of our creatures and nature. Hoping to be together and have better days on this planet. Thank you dear friends for watching this video. Please support me by subscribing, liking, activating notifications for future videos, your comments, and introducing this channel to your friends. Be happy in any case. Freedom in humanity.